Okay, in this video we're going to look at how to duplicate or replicate a label in SafetyPro Label Designer. So the situation might be that you've been told that you need to design a label that matches one you already have in the field, to either replace a label or to add another label in another location. It might also be that your boss has come to you and said, hey, I found this label online and I want you to make one that looks like that. Those are kind of the two situations that we're going to handle today with SafetyPro Label Designer. So let's go ahead and take a look at a couple pictures that I have here. There's a PNG file and a JPEG file of two kind of pinch point labels. So I'm going to show you how you can recreate those labels from an image file using SafetyPro Label Designer. So let's go ahead and open it up. All right, so you might be thinking, well, why don't I just download and print this label? Well, there's two problems with that. First of all is that when you download a file, depending on the size of that image, you may not be able to print it at your printer's resolution and have it look good because it's a JPEG or a PNG is a raster file. We explained that in another video just a little bit. Basically what it means is that when you zoom in on that file, you see pixels rather than having it look smooth. That just doesn't work well for printing. The other issue is that these ones are multicolor images. The SafetyPro is a monochrome printer with a thermal resin that embeds itself into the vinyl. So what you really need is you need that black and white image so that the black portion of the label or the single color that you have can be printed over the rest, whether it's a die cut or a single color vinyl. So let's go ahead and look at what we need to do to make this work. All right, first of all, we're going to start with this one right here, which is like about a 4x6 label. So let's go ahead and create a new 4x6 label. And again, this video is for showing how to replicate a label. This is not a training video for how to use SafetyPro Label Designer. So if you haven't already watched the other videos on getting started, go ahead and watch those so you know what we're doing here. All right, so we're going to go ahead and create a 4x6 in landscape. Hit OK. And there is our label. And let's go ahead and turn this on. The very first thing you want to do when you're going to do this process is you're going to import that image of the label that you already have. So let's go ahead and start with this one right here. So I click the image icon up there and we're going to go ahead and open that and set it down on our label. Now you see that's a little too big. You'll also see, and let's go ahead and make it match. So the first thing you want to do is make it match to the corners of your label. Easiest way to do that is right here in position. Just put in 0 and 0. That puts the top left corner right at the top left corner of our label, and we know for sure that it matches. The next thing you do is just go down the line and set your width to 6 and your height to 4, and boom, you've matched it up exactly with your label right on the edges. Now with that selected, just go ahead and click this red lock icon, and now this is locked in. If you click it and try to move it, nothing happens. It's locked in like a background, and we're going to use that to put our label over the top of. Now, and let me just demonstrate why this wouldn't be good to just hit print right here. Not only does it have this color field up here, which would print incorrectly on a monochrome printer, when you zoom in, you see how grainy it is. That's not going to look good. So I'll show you the difference when we finish our label here. But this gives us a starting point. Basically, this is a guide to help us make our label. Let's go ahead and start with this header here, this warning header. I'll go ahead and click the image icon and go into our headers. These headers ship with the software, and we are dealing with a warning header, so let's go ahead and use this one right here. Set it down. You can ignore the white because white won't be printed. And we're just going to try to get it to match approximately. Let's go ahead and turn off Snap to Grid and give us a little bit more flexibility. All right. That's pretty much it. All right, right now consider this your rough draft, your rough layout when you're doing this first step. We're trying to get all the elements of the label onto the label, and then we'll remove the background and then we'll finalize the label. So the next thing we'll do is try to get this graphic here with the fingers. So go ahead and click that image icon again, and we will go back to the pre-made symbols, and I believe something like that might be in Warning USA. All right, that's the one right there. There's a lot of symbols that you'll either find exactly or a close enough match. So we're not going to worry about putting that in the exact, I mean, that's pretty close right there. So that's ours. We're going to set it on top. And then there it says pinch hazard. So let's go ahead and use the simple text to make pinch hazard. I'm going to make it maybe even a little more bold than that, but let's try it. Depending on what the boss says, you need one that matches exactly. Fine, you can work on that. If you want one that just matches approximately and you're using the design, that's fine too. All right, so I like these warning words a little more bold, but actually ends up looking almost exactly the same as well. Again, rough draft, I'm not trying to make this one match pixel for pixel or anything. I'm just trying to put it in the same place. Keep hands in clothing, so let's go ahead and use a regular text box for that. Okay, so we're just setting it on top. Stretch that out kind of. We'll go ahead and edit that. And keep hands in clothing, let's just retype it. All right, there we go. And we're going to need that font to be a little bigger, and let's go ahead and make it bold. And we'll just go ahead and try something like 30 for now. I might have gone a little too big. Just a tad too big there. Let's just go back here. Okay, I like the way that looks. Mine's a little more bold than that one, which I like for this kind of label. Okay, so now I've got all the elements. I got the graphic, the header, and the two sets of words. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to click on this background. You see how it's outlined in red? That's that locked object that I made. So now that I have my label in place, everything where I want it, I'm going to delete the background. And you see, we're left with a label that pretty much looks like it's ready to print, ready to go. I mean, you could make further adjustments here if you felt like you wanted things to line up differently. But I actually like the way that looks. So, and let me just show you too, when you zoom in, you see how you still have the full quality there. You can zoom in as much as you want, because these are vector graphics. They'll resize to any size, which means you're going to get much better print quality than trying to print some picture off the internet or some picture that your boss sent you. So that's one label. Let's go ahead and do one more just to make sure that that's all clear. We've recreated this label. Now we could save it, and we could do whatever we want with it in the future. All right, so let's start this process over with a new file. We're not going to bother saving that because it's just a test. Our other one, now let's just go take a look at it real quick. This one is a little more complicated. You can also see that it's wider. This is not a 4x6. We're going to say maybe that's a 4x10 as a guess. So let's go ahead and start with that. If you get the size wrong, actually let me just show you what you do. Let's say you started with a 4x6 in landscape. Sorry, let me get this picture folder out of the way. Okay, so let's say you import that new label as your background. You're going to try to recreate this one. Okay. And you get going here, and you put it at the top left corner by doing 0, 0 on the X and the Y. That's the top left corner. And then you get the width is 6 of my label and 4. And you say, well, that's a lot more smashed than I want it, okay? So all you have to do is go up here to File and Change Label Setup. You can also click this icon right here. That'll let you change the label setup, and you say, well, that needs to be wider for sure. Let's go to 10. Okay, now you've increased the size of your label. That might actually be too wide, so let's just, instead of it being 6 inches wide, now let's make it 10. And yeah, it's a little bit stretched out, so let's just look at this before we change that again. Oops. Make it 8. That looks about perfect. So let's make our label setup 8. That's this one right here instead of 10. You can also hit customize if you need to type in some in-between size, like 8.5. Okay, so now that's perfect. That lines up good. I think that triangle doesn't look too stretched out. Let's go ahead and lock it with that red icon. Okay, so now we've imported the image. We made our label the size to match, so everything looks good. We've lined it up to 0, 0, and we've clicked the red icon to lock that object in the background. Now we're ready to move forward. But before we do create the objects on top of this, let's talk about the colors on this label. We sell die-cut labels for the SafetyPro printer that give you the color fields for different types of labels. But let's say all you have is 4-inch yellow vinyl or orange vinyl. Let's say it's a warning label, you want to use orange. If you have 4-inch orange vinyl, you could recreate this label and print it on straight orange. That means you'd have orange fully in the background, but you'd still have this ANSI style layout. So depending on what your specs are, let's say your boss said to you, hey, I want a label that looks just like this, but I just want it in orange. Okay, that's up to you. Those are your considerations as as an organization that you have to make. But that's what I'm going to do with this label. I'm going to recreate this one to be printed on 4-inch orange. So I don't want, obviously you don't want to print any colors. Those colors will either be on the die cuts already, pre-printed for you. So we need this black and white. All right, I'm going to start actually with, we'll just start with that warning header. You can start however you want. You'll find certain objects will need to be moved upward or backward depending on how you do it. But let's just start with that safety header because that's simple. Let's get that warning header in there. And again, that white's not going to matter because we're printing black and white. So you can just disregard the fact that there's a white field behind that. It really doesn't matter for our purposes. That's a pretty good match. You notice the warning text is different. I actually like it bigger like that. If I wanted, I could just put that triangle in and I could put in small warning like that if I needed to match it exactly. I don't need to. I want it to look better than that, and I think that looks better, so I'm going with that. Okay, let's go ahead and do this pinch point next. Actually, let's do this other image. Once again, the built-in images are found in your pictures folder in SafetyPro pre-made symbols. Warning International, I think, has something like that. That's hand being crushed. Okay, if you have specific, these are all what come with the software. If you have specific equipment that needs a specific pictogram, you can bring that in. You don't have to be stuck with just what came with the software. You can bring in anything you want. But for my purpose, I'm going to use this one, which just shows a hand being crushed, and that's close enough for what I want. So I'm just going to kind of make that match approximately, and that for the sake of this video I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but you can spend the time that you want as you make your labels. Now let me bring in this pinch point text right here using this simple text item, and again I'm going to make that stretchable, and I like using Arial Black because it's really bold and easy to read. And if you don't know why I'm choosing 6-point font, go ahead and watch some of our other videos. You'll understand that when you have it set to stretchable, that's the one that gives you the most flexibility. So I'm going to go to about right there. That's actually pretty darn close to what was on that label. And again, for the sake of the video, I'm not trying to be exact. I'm just trying to recreate the label structure. And let's add our last text item here. I'm using a regular text item. Make that box about yay big and edit it to have the same text as we see below. Obviously I can't copy paste that text because it's in a picture. Alright, now if I had any changes I wanted to make to this text, I can do that now as well. If I really want an exclamation point there, for example, well, no problem. And let's just try like a 28. See that? That's a little bit smaller. I'm going to edit that one more time. That looks good. I like the way that looks. Okay, and once again, now at this point we want to actually, so we have a few more things I forgot. You see this black box around the outside. Okay, let's go ahead and add that in. I'm going to click up here, and I'm going to turn on Snap to Grid. That might help us. It's whether you use it or not, it's up to you. Snap to Grid can be useful. Sometimes it can get annoying if you want to move things or they don't quite line up to that image. I'll just turn it off. I actually find it might just be easier to just do it like this. That's pretty good. So I've made a box. I made my point size 6 to match kind of that thickness, and I'm going to make a couple lines here. Again, point size 6, because eyeballing it, that looks about the same thickness to me. And I'm going to put that one going right about here. Again, this first step, when you're putting it in here, let me turn on Snap to Grid for that. I don't like. All right, you're eyeballing it. This is your rough draft. You're going to adjust it when you get rid of the background. The background can get in the way and make things visually confusing. We're using it as a guide, so we want to make our changes at the end. And I'm going to use this to rotate that, and then we're just going to go ahead and stretch it down here. Okay, now we have all the elements of this label. So let's go ahead and try to find that background. You notice how I'm clicking around and I'm catching other things. Specifically, I caught that box. So I'm going to send that box to the back for the moment, just like that. And now I got the background selected. Okay, now that I have all my elements of that background, I can delete it. just like I did before. Okay, perfect. Now you can see though that there's still a few adjustments. Like you see my lines sticking out up there. And I need to turn off snap to grid to fix that. So let's just get that line just about right. All right. Let's see if that looks good. Now that's a little too tall. Snap to grid keeps me at that 270 degrees. I can also just type things in. So if I want it to go to a different point, but let me just show you what I'm going to do. What I feel like is the easiest here. That 270 degrees is still there. I stretched it down. Perfect. Everything else is lined up great. I mean, if I needed to, I could move things around. One last thing I'm going to do, this one has that white background, so I'm going to make sure to send it to the back behind the lines so we're not changing the width of the line right there. And there you have it. Perfect label. Ready to go. Everything's pretty much lined up the way it should be. You could adjust it further, change it, do whatever you want with it. And when I print this on 4-inch orange material, you have a nice warning label with the ANSI layout on a single color background. You could also print this sort of thing on our ANSI die cut templates. But that's that. So that's the trick to, if you need to recreate a label that someone sends you or that you have already, using SafetyPro Label Designer. Make sure to watch our other videos if you need to learn or be trained in how to use SafetyPro Label Designer or use more of its advanced features. Thanks for choosing SafetyPro. If you have further questions, always feel free to call us toll free at 877-762-9280.